helping, and then it will spark a bigger conflict. That's why some states spoke out saying that they're fully supportive of the UN resolutions, but there should be no use of force in dealing with the problem because it will lead to a larger conflict.
Thank you, sir. Can we have Yuan from Xinhua, please? Another topic.
Thank you, sir. I'm the reporter from Xinhua News Agency. I have a question about the ASEAN-China relationship. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, during the ASEAN-China Foreign Minister Meeting, made 7 suggestions on the China-ASEAN cooperation, including seek to synergize the Belt and Road Initiative and the ASEAN Connectivity 2025, and seek to upgrade the China-ASEAN FTA. And we also noted that in the AFM joint communique, the foreign minister said the region continues to reap the fruit of China's economic growth. So my question is, how do you comment the role that China play in this region, and how do you think China-ASEAN to further the economic cooperation in the future? Thank you.
Okay. Well, let me start out by saying that we value all our dialogue partners. And let me also state that the superpowers of this world, may it be in the economic or military or both spheres, play an important role in peace and stability in any region in the world. So it's very hard to describe the role of one country in one region. But definitely in terms of economics, for example, China has shown economic strength in the last 20 or more than 20 years, the last 2 decades. Its economy has also fueled growth in ASEAN. Tourism from China, manufacturing, the infrastructure projects, So China has played a very positive role holistically in the region. But a couple of years ago, there was some sort of instability because of issues in the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea. And these instabilities, caused certain reactions and strains in some relationship. The ASEAN ministers took note of the positive developments in this last year. In other words, we have to separate our overall relationship with any country and a dispute with that country. If you look at the South China Sea, the dispute is not only between China and the Philippines, China and Vietnam, China and Malaysia, China and Brunei. We have overlapping claims, but we did not allow this to disturb our good relationship with Brunei, Vietnam, and Malaysia. So that's the efforts that are underway now. That all the positive sides that China can give in its relationship with ASEAN will not be disturbed because of the overlapping claims in the South China Sea. And everyone is working hard at this point in time to get there. Now, there are, of course, countries that are more passionate and use harsher language. There are countries that are as passionate but uses better language. But definitely, China will be a driver for socio-economic development in the region. There are other partners who also are drivers of socio-economic development. Japan is an example.
Thank you, sir. May we have Pat from Rappler?
Hi, sir. Many Southeast Asian diplomats said in interviews that you were not supposed to include land reclamation and militarization in your joint communique because there was a lack of consensus. How and why did you end up mentioning land reclamation and militarization in your joint communique?
Let me start with the process. The joint communique is a negotiated document. No? So meaning you start with the zero draft, give it to everyone, then draft after draft until everyone agrees language. So there are different styles of doing it. You can go minimum, maximum, or middle. No? So our team decided to go with language that was more reflective, of what was happening in the last year, because the last document was the Vientiane document, no? And for examples, the concerns, the difficulty with words, it sometimes that does not truly express what is happening. So, like if you say concerns, is it how much of a concern is it? Is it a lingering concern? Is it a concern that can lead to conflict or hindi, di ba? So we have to be very careful about language. And remember, the JC is about the regional interest and not only your national interest. So when the other countries were saying it's here, it's not there, they use this language, they use that language, etc., they were just referring to some drafts. And I have to admit to you, there's also a lot of gossip about it. Because when we were talking to the other foreign ministers, they're saying this is here, they're not, they're saying this. But we had a very candid, passionate discussion. And I believe that the joint communique is a very balanced one. It articulates as close as possible how ASEAN as a whole or most or some of its members feel. But it's also a testament to our centrality. Meaning much of us compromised. Those who wanted it stronger compromised to weaker. Those who wanted it weaker compromised to make it stronger, if I may use the stronger, weaker. Although I don't think stronger or weaker is the right words. I saw some news reports about stronger, weaker, because the point is how reflective is it of the present situation. Let me just give you an example. No? If you're absent for 5 days and your editor gives you a letter saying, if you're absent, absence is inexcusable, salary deduction, if you do it again, you're out of the office. If for the next 3 months, you're never absent but you're late, of course the document should not read, absence is inexcusable. It should be, tardiness is inexcusable, no? But to some, you say, sir, bakit it's weaker? Why did you tell that employee before that, absence is unexcusable? Now tardiness is discouraged. Because it's reflective, except that in this case, it's a continuing situation. But on the Philippine side, we're very optimistic. We have made several gains. If some of you were in the forum, with the former secretaries Romulo, Alberto, and Albert Del Rosario, we mentioned to them that we respect and will fight for the gains of the past, but our strategy has changed. The objective is the same, but the strategy has changed. And we are very proud of the position of the Philippines now. Why? Before, our fishermen could not fish in several areas. Now there's a tentative fishing agreement. Secondly, before everyone was building everywhere. Now people are still building on what they hold, but no one's going to new areas. Land reclamations have stopped. We have agreements on the environment, on protecting marine resources. So, we can argue, and I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong as to strategy, but let's agree on the goals, and let's agree on how we will measure our success or failures in terms of meeting those goals.
Sir, quick follow-up.
Yes.
Categorically speaking, was the Philippines one of the countries that initially did not want to include land reclamation and militarization in the joint communique?
Yes. I drafted it.
We did not want to include it.
I didn't want to include it.
Why?
It's not reflective of the present position. Well, they're not reclaiming land anymore. So why will you put it again this year? But since, yes, in fact, there was reclamations in the past, and you can start to reclaim again. And that was the general sentiment. I accepted it. So you start with a proposition. So militarization. There's militarization in the area, but there's also militarization outside. So every country has a right to defend itself. I'm not saying I agree with what China is doing. But the Philippines, in building trust and mutual respect with China, is asking China to understand us. So how can we do that without also understanding them? Having said that, we cannot compromise the freedom of navigation and oversight and overflight. We cannot compromise international law. We are signatories and believers in the UNCLOS. So I had a hand in what to put there, and I told my staff, it doesn't matter what you put or you don't put at the zero draft, because what matters is it reflects what the majority wants, and actually it's more than a majority, because if I insisted that that won't be there, there's a possibility it won't be there. There's a possibility we won't have a joint communique, because that's the beauty. The strength and weakness of the ASEAN is the centrality, meaning we decide on consensus. It has to be 10-0. So it's a strength because so far we've found a way to vote together. But it could be a weakness because if only one of us didn't want a certain word there. But I'll just remind everyone that just because a word or a word is not in a statement, or we did not make that statement in public, that doesn't mean our stand has changed, and that doesn't mean that we're not working towards that goal. Politicians and diplomats are so different. Because politicians, and I can speak for politicians being a politician for 25 years, use the microphone. And they try to gain the support for their stand. The problem is the window for negotiation closes. Diplomats are different. We try to keep quiet, we try to talk less, so that the area for negotiation and the windows and doors are more wide open.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One more question on this topic, Christian, from ABS-CBN.
Sir, good evening.
Evening.
So regarding the conditions set by the Chinese foreign minister, was this even discussed with ASEAN? Or are you surprised about this?
Not really. I think he was just stating a fact, because you cannot really negotiate. Even the framework of the COC, I mean, I don't know if I'm correct, but I'll give a lot of credit to President Duterte. Although it was an ASEAN consensus and it was negotiated with ASEAN, the loud but calming voice of President Duterte in the Philippines allowed the better relations and the stability in the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea. So what happened? So everyone was more open to negotiations. At first, there was even a word in the framework of being non-legally binding. But at due time, China dropped that and just said, okay, let's approve the framework, then let's go now to the COC. So, this isn't like conditions. If you listen to the conditions, that there must be stability, there must be the status quo, etc. It's just like anyone telling you, I'll only negotiate with you if it's in good faith. Because if it's the same with us, why would we negotiate with them for the COC if they're moving? It's the same stand with the president, with the New People's Army and NDF. If you keep shooting our soldiers, why should we negotiate with you? You stop, we negotiate. So it's I look at it more as a prerequisite, and it's a logical prerequisite for me. No, that's why if you look at our statement, it's directed to all states, that we shouldn't do anything in the area unilaterally and should not do anything that will make us regress and lose trust and lead to conflict.
Thank you, sir. Next
Just
question.
one follow-up. But
Sure.
sir, aren't you giving China too much, basically a free pass in these negotiations? Number one, the Philippines was the one that sought to remove or not to mention land reclamation and militarization? Because you're talking here with China.
what's your
They're the ones actually
Yes.
involved in the land
No,
reclamation.
what's your objective? Is your objective to shame China or confront them? Or is your objective peace and stability in the South China Sea and get the COC passed? Whether the land reclamation was there or not, and it is there, the reality on the ground is that people have stopped reclaiming. And the reality on the ground is it's just not China who did reclamation. Diba? So, why is it viewed as we are giving in to China? This isn't a battle. This isn't a competition. China is not our enemy. Our policy is friends to all, enemy to none. So if you want us to take that attitude against China, do you mean you want us to have an aggressive attitude against Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei because they're also claiming features that we are claiming? The framing is wrong. The framing during the Aquino administration, I respect, it's Philippines versus China. Because the situation on the ground called for that. The situation now is that we're gaining ground. So if we're gaining ground in the South China Sea, can you not reflect that in your statements so that you can get more ground? So there are some whose political objective is to shame China. So that's why their basis is it for or against China? The Department of Foreign Affairs, and I believe the ASEAN, is not for shaming any of our dialogue partners, not even for any of our rivals, not even for co-claimants, but to find a peaceful resolution to all of this. That's why, with all due respect to ABS-CBN, the online that said that we have a weaker statement, I disagree. I think that framing is the old framing of the question. And I think it's biased because it's not about a weaker or stronger statement, but it's really about is it more reflective or is it unreflective of the situation?
But basically, sir, land
Thank you,
reclamation is
Christian.
just
Go ahead,
consistent
Just
with
let him
basically just consistent with the
Go ahead.
DOC. Although we all know that the DOC was non-binding. But
Yes.
basically, you could see consistency by
So-
putting it still in the discussions now.
The question is not consistency because we consistently bring it up. It is in the stand of the Philippines that there should be no reclamation, no efforts for that. So it's not about consistency. It's about diplomatic language that will lead us to our goals. Having said that, 10 minds are better than one. So you can also ask, for example, the other states, why did they want it weaker? Why did they want it stronger? It's just that as chair, I started the zero draft. But we did not shove it down the throat of anyone because we believe in ASEAN centrality. No? But I just wanted to emphasize, we see the South China Sea and the Philippine-China relationship much, much different of how it was framed in the Aquino administration.
Thank you, sir.
Hi,
we have questions.
Secretary
Hi, Ben.
Cayetano. Hello, JC Gotinga of CNN Philippines. Sir, during Foreign Minister Wang's interview with Philippine journalists at the PICC, he was asked about whether China would agree that the Code of Conduct be legally binding. And his answer was that just like the DOC, if the 10 states plus China have signed the document, then they have the responsibility of making, well, the contents of that document come to life. In so many words, that was what he was saying. But I just noticed that he was basically saying just like the DOC. He likens the COC to the DOC, and I think there is consensus that the DOC was not able to achieve its goal of maintaining the status quo because the massive reclamation that China carried out took place even with the DOC in place. So what do we make of this statement from Minister Wang? Does it mean that China's commitment to the COC will only be as much as the commitment that it gave to the DOC?
Okay. take a step back, no? You know, the reason why there's passion here, and I'm not saying people are not patriotic or people, when I say that there's a different framing, as I said, I very much respect the past administration. I congratulate them for their gains. I even assured Secretary Del Rosario that we will not budge in our objective to secure our national territory and not give an inch of our economic entitlement, sovereignty, or sovereignty rights. No? But having said all of that, this is a regional organization and it's a dialogue. You cannot keep seeing things from your country's point of view. Meaning, what if we were not claimants? Would we still have that same passion against China? Now, I want the non-claimants to have that passion because they're part of the ASEAN. And they want us to do that also. You know? So, it's not always ASEAN versus China, China versus ASEAN, DOC, etc. But the reality is being the strength of China, may it be economically or in other terms, some people are saying, you should join forces, sama-sama kayo, etc. But it's not that you have a claim here, you have a claim here, you have a claim here, and China is claiming everything. No, the claims are overlapping. It is true that China is claiming most of it, but the claims are overlapping. So meaning we have overlapping claims with Vietnam, with Malaysia, to a certain extent Brunei, and China. No? So to your question, do we want it legally binding? Of course, that's the ultimate goal. But what's the problem in international relations with legally binding? In our countries, we have a system. So in the Philippines, for those who are not from here, if you're from the same place, you go to the barangay first. You cannot go to the court without the barangay to certain cases. Then you go to court. If you don't believe in the decision of the court, you appeal, and then you appeal, until the decision is final. When the decision is final, or if you get an execution pending appeal, you have the people who will enforce it. Okay? When it comes to international relations, let's say North Korea is a signatory to binding agreements, to legally binding. Who will enforce it? So we want legally binding because it's better for all the claimant states. But we have to negotiate going there. So if China is saying now that they're going for binding, will we stop talking to them? Let's continue talking to them, but let's continue to push for legally binding. The problem with legally binding, very practical, I'll give you, I'm okay. I'll follow President Duterte, I'm okay till 1 a.m.
Thank you, sir.
So, the problem with legally binding, is, okay, what are the penalties? And if the penalties, what are the mechanisms for adjudication? What tribunal, what court? And then after that, who will enforce? So I think some countries are just being practical by saying it's easier to have a binding rather than legally binding.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that we're going to give up on coming up with a legally binding COC.
Yes.
Now, last point. If you go back and say that, but China did this, China did that, Philippines did this, Vietnam did this, then we'll never move forward. There's no doubt that we do not like the actions of some players, including China, in the past. What we're saying is we're making progress, so we have to do better. No? But if we keep regressing, diba, in peace talks, how will we finish the peace talks if every time we talk, we will say, si ganito, pinatay mo, ikaw naman, si ganito, pinatay mo. Diba? If we keep going back, you go back to the past so that you don't repeat it in the future. But if you go back in the past just to scold, in the past, we were strong in our statements because they wouldn't stop.
Okay.
But now that there is peace and stability and there's goodwill there, That is the approach we're taking, and we think it's working.
Okay, I'm going to pack
Go
two
ahead.
questions into
Sure,
one so that
sure,
it keeps
go ahead.
time. Sir, of course, the ASEAN is looking after the interests of the individual members. I'm sure you would agree. So I guess what Philippines...
And the region.
Yes. I guess what Filipinos are asking for, looking for, is the assurance that the COC will mean more than the DOC has meant. So my question number one is, so what ways are being implemented to make sure that the COC is going to count significantly more than the DOC? And number two, just for the record, sir, please pardon this question.
Go ahead.
Why not just mention the arbitration? Why not mention it?
Because we won't make any progress. China already said, if you talk about the arbitration award, there's no talks. So would you rather that we be tough on paper and shove it in their face and nothing happens in the South China Sea? Or would you rather we talk diplomatically and we get all the results? What's the guarantee of the Filipino people? What's the guarantee of the fishermen? They're now be able to fish there. What's the guarantee of future generations? Now the spawning grounds of the fish are being guarded by both coast guards. Now the giant clams and the areas with marine resources that need to be guarded are guarded by both coast guards. Now the Philippines and China are talking. Now we are cooperating and doing things together. We have a problem in Mindanao. Who gave us free guns and ammunition? So, you know, it's not about words, about documents, about signing. Look at the actions. Look at the strength of the relationship. Look at the direction. So if you're going to tell me that, you know, sir, there's no improvement and the situation is getting more unstable, then by all means you can ask me why not use the decision. But when we agreed with China, you know, the president has been very clear about this many, many times. He said, he never said he abandoned the decision. He never said he's tearing it apart. So those reports that are saying that sinayang niya, you know, that's local politics. That's people hitting the president. President said, I will put it aside first, and there will be a proper time to talk about it. But let me ask you a direct question. If I ask China fisheries, and on one hand I refer to a document, on the other hand I just give them a map, and I get the work done with the map versus the decision. If you were in my place, what would you do? Would you use the decision or would you use the map?
Sorry, sir.
If you were in my place.
Sorry, sir. I don't understand what you're driving at.
What I'm driving at is results. Ano bang gusto natin? Away o magkaayos tayo dyan sa South China Sea? Do we want to just pick a fight for the sake of picking a fight? Or do we want our interests protected in the South China Sea? So if in one way, if I'm using the decision and we're getting nowhere, versus not using a decision and using other means, other documents, other historical documents, but we're making progress. You want to go back? Because you said, excuse me, let me ask, why aren't you using the decision? Because we're following our national interest. And our national interest is to push for our claims in that area, and we're gaining ground, doing it by talking in a friendly manner, building trust with China.
Thank you very much. The Secretary would have to go to the lighting ceremony at CCP. He is the keynote speaker there, so...
Yeah. As long as you don't report I'm absent from there, because I'm with you, I can stay.
Sir, maybe one other
Yeah, okay.
question from another
Wang
topic.
Zhenzhen from China Central Television. Secretary, I would like to know, because the Chinese President Xi sent a congratulatory message to President Duterte, and he said that the 50th anniversary of ASEAN is an opportunity to tighten the relationship between China and ASEAN. Especially, we can create a community of shared future of mankind. So I would like to know what's your comments about this issue, and how can we deeply further the relationship between ASEAN and China step by step in the future? Thank you, sir.
First of all, I think it was a very productive and constructive dialogue and conference and meeting. I think we achieved I was going to say lahat. We achieved everything we set out to achieve in this meeting, given the expectations. There's much more work to do. I think, even the claimant states have said that peace and stability is paramount, and we recognize the positive direction that is being taken. So I could honestly say that the relationship of ASEAN and China improved and strengthened over these ministerial meetings. But let me just also state this. No? There's no shame in having good relations with any state, even if there are disagreements. So we are proud with our relationship with China. We're proud with our relationship with Japan. We're proud with our relationship with Russia. So the President Duterte is simply saying, don't tell us what to do. Take care of our individual relationship. Don't tell us what to do. Let us pursue our own national interests. Now, for the local media, it is your job, and we respect that, to hold us accountable that we are indeed producing results for the people. So my point is that the result should not be only a piece of paper or a decision. I'm not downgrading it to a piece of paper. I'm just saying you look at the situation, the factual situation in the ground. It's like another country coming up with a piece of paper that this is the number of people dead in the Philippines. But can you not look if the streets are safer? And why are they dead? Were they killed extrajudicially or because there is a legitimate drug campaign and they fought against the police? So I think overall the relationship between ASEAN and China is improving. Philippines and China. China has close allies and friends in the individual states of ASEAN. Definitely the overlapping claims in the South China Sea has caused frictions, or in, ano ba sa English yung lamat? May lamat sa relationship. It caused a fracture in the relationship. But like young people, fractures heal. And with the right nurturing and with mutual trust, the fracture can disappear and you can be stronger. So we're looking forward to doing great things with our dialogue partners.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hindi na rin ako abot.
Secretary.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just following my bosses.
Sorry.
You cannot negotiate with protocol officers.
Okay.
So can I stay like 30 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So just a related question. Having just said all that,
Please introduce yourself, please.
I'm Yan from Phoenix TV Hong Kong, and having just said all that, can I just get your comments on the strong statement released by U.S., Australia, and Japan on the South China Sea on the sidelines of ASEAN meetings?
Japan, Australia, and U.S. are our friends. U.S. is our treaty ally. But we have told all countries around the world, we are a sovereign nation. We will decide what is good for us, what strategy is good for us, because we are a sovereign nation. So we respect their views. But the problem of territorial dispute between China and the Philippines is between China and the Philippines. Just as China, Russia, Japan, and the other countries are not telling us what to do regarding our dispute with Vietnam, with Malaysia, and Brunei, we expect nations not to tell us what to do. But you have to understand that they also have their foreign policy and their interest. And some of these interests intersect with all of ours. For example, freedom of navigation and overflight. Everyone is for that. But we have different definitions. So, again, may I reiterate, we are not pro-China, pro-US, pro-Japan, pro-whatever. We're pro-Philippines and we're pro-ASEAN. And because we're pro-ASEAN and we're pro-Philippines, we are good friends to China, we are good friends to Japan, we are good friends to US, and we will appreciate not being told what to do. because we are a sovereign nation. And that is the instructions of my president, and I serve at his pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Maybe one more question, please.
Good evening, sir. I'm Toru Morinaga from the Daily Manila Shimbun. So I'd like to ask you the meeting between Japanese Foreign Minister Kono and President Duterte. I heard it took 40 minutes. So please let us know what they discussed, specific topic and details. Thank you.
Well, we very much welcome the appointment and the arrival of Minister Kono. We know it is, I think, just his 5th day today, but we are very thankful that he decided to attend the conference, to participate very actively, to articulate Japan's positions in different issues. I think we see eye to eye with Japan in many issues. They had a very good, frank discussion with the president. It even went over time. Most of the discussion was on anti-terrorism and the support of Japan, but the president also took the opportunity to thank Prime Minister Abe for the support in anti-terrorism, for the support in Marawi, and for the infrastructure program that Japan and Philippines is working with together. So it was quite a long meeting, but the meeting went along those lines, and of course encouraged the other visits. The reiteration of possibility of President Duterte visiting Japan and our welcoming Prime Minister Abe in November.
Thank you, sir.
So it's reflective of the very strong and warm relations of Japan and the Philippines. Do you have a follow-up? What's follow-up in Japanese?
I think it's same. May I ask, is there any new offer from Japan or something? New offer?
There was a general offer to let them know how they can help, especially in anti-terrorism, and it was a reiteration that Japan is a good friend of the Philippines and is ready to help. But there's so much cooperation agreements now, and there's so much ongoing that we're very thankful.
Thank you, sir. Maybe one more question.
Thank you. I'm managing newspaper from Japan, and I've got 2 questions. First is, why it takes some long time to disclose ALF chairman's statement? Because any different opinions over the Korean Peninsula issue or the South China Sea?
No, it's just we usually, my personal style is to come out with the statement after the dialogue, not before. Even if in diplomacy, everything is talked about by the senior officials and there are all documents, I've learned in Philippine Congress that it's best to wait for the actual meeting before we come out with the documents. And since it all happened yesterday, I only had time to review it after. So we had the grand celebration. Then before that, the president met the ASEAN ministers, the dialogue partners. Then I joined him with the bilateral with Japan. And then I had 3 bilateral meetings also with New Zealand, EU, and India. So by the time I was able to review it, it was time to go to see you. So it took me some time to.
I think there was severe discussion over the Korean Peninsula issue or South China Sea. So was it a bit difficult for you to make the statement?
Not difficult because there's unanimity, more or less, in the stand regarding DPRK. So, but it delayed because I had to get all the inputs. But I think it's very reflective. All four or 5 documents are very reflective of the common stand.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
Was there any progress over the East Timor as a new member of the ASEAN?
It's under consideration. Yeah, so they're filling the requirement. Yes. I just verified, but I'm there. So we told East Timor that there's support, but they have to fulfill the requirements, and they're doing everything to fulfill the requirements. So we have to go through the process.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think
Sure.
that ends our press conference this evening.
Thank
the
you
Secretary
again
and Chair
very
of the
much.
50th AMM, the Secretary Alan Peter S. Cayetano. Thank you,
Thank you.
friends from the media.